this morning, Prime Minister Modi, who is in Tokyo as part of the Quad Summit. Remember, there were chants that were heard of Bharat Mata Ki Jai on his two-day visit to attend the Quad Summit. The meeting of the Quad leaders, remember, will take place tomorrow and is aimed at further bolstering the cooperation among the member nations of the influential grouping, as well as to discuss developments in the Indo-Pacific region. We have our senior executive editor, Abhishek, who's reporting live from Tokyo. Abhishek, it's a jam-packed day as we are talking about here for Prime Minister Modi. Take us through the latest that is happening, because we understand right now Prime Minister Modi is engaging with a lot of business leaders in Tokyo.
Well, yes, Samiksha, just to give you an update on what's happening here, we are at the lobby entrance from where Prime Minister is going to come out. His carcade is ready. You can see all the people who are accompanying him, from External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar to National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. They would be getting in a while from now, and then Prime Minister, who's just finishing the last of his business one-on-ones with the top corporate honchos of Japan, would be coming in, and he goes from here to the Izumo Gardens Galleria, where the IPEF is to be announced by US President Joe Biden. That's Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. It's a new platform announced by the Americans. They believe that this should be seen as a counter of the free world to the BRI, which the Chinese use as a debt trap diplomacy tool as well. This is going to be different. So the Prime Minister there going to participate in the IPEF in a while from now. He has been closeted in these meetings for more than 3 hours now, if I could tell you. And back-to-back meetings have gone on during this time, some of which we have been bringing into our viewers through the sound bites that these top corporate guns have been giving after engaging with the Prime Minister, including the heads of the Suzuki Motor Corporation, the SoftBank, the NEC, and Uniqlo, among others. So I think if you look at the pictures, some dignitary movement happening there, some VIP movement happening there, and we can see National Security Advisor there at the back, and essentially preparations on for the Prime Minister to leave. But coming back to what's on the agenda from here on, Prime Minister goes for the IPEF, comes back, and then he again has a business summit lined up where he would be engaging in a broad conversation with the Japanese corporate sector about opportunities in India, about the role the government plays as a facilitator, about the recent policies and the framework that has been put in place to dovetail their objectives of enterprise with the Government of India objectives like the Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, how the corporations here can benefit from those enablers, including the PLI. So all those things are there. And again, we keep to the pictures just to give you an idea of where we are. That's the new Otani hotel where Prime Minister and his delegation is put up, and the carcade is ready for the Prime Minister to arrive anytime now, because he has to leave for the IPEF, which is, of course, a big ticket showcase event of this trip, apart from the Quad Summit, which is happening tomorrow. And as I said, the Americans believe that IPEF is sort of an alternative for the rest of the world to engage with the Quad nations in this part of the globe. And that's where this event in itself becomes important. Prime Minister participating it underscores the fact that India is integral to it. Remember, in the Obama administration, there was this deal that was coming up called Trans-Pacific Partnership. It included China. So that kind of benevolence no more exists in terms of indulging with the Chinese after whatever they have done over the last half decade or so with every neighbor in this region, including India and Ladakh. And that's why I think this framework is evolving as a possible alternative to engage with all the nations in this part of the world, minus the Chinese, because of their belligerence, because of their aggression, because of their absolutely in-your-face debt trap diplomacy that they have practiced, even with small nations like Sri Lanka, like Maldives, and that's why I think this is an evolving global response to Chinese unilateralism, to Chinese aggression. And we are going to see Prime Minister coming out in a while from now for participating in the IPEF, that's Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Apart from that, of course, he has been busy engaging with the corporate sector of Japan, and he will again come back, as I said, for the business summit for another 1 hour before he goes back and addresses the Indian diaspora. That's at about 7:30 p.m. Tokyo time. That should be roughly about 3 p.m. India time. Samiksha.
Well, absolutely, Abhishek. And as you rightly pointed out, all eyes will be on that Quad Summit, which will take place tomorrow. If you could briefly touch upon the past Quad Summit as well. What has come out of the past Quad Summit when we talk about what can be expected in the Quad Summit that will take place tomorrow?
All right, so yes, Samiksha, so this is the fourth Quad summit or engagement that's taking place between the leaders, but second only in person. The last one was in September in Washington, D.C., and this one happening tomorrow in Tokyo. And I believe this would happen in turn at other locations of partner countries. So in New Delhi, perhaps, and then, of course, in Canberra in Australia. What is important is that Quad has come up essentially as a security response, though of course nobody talks about it like that. So whether in this summit, Quad is going to become a little open about the fact that it is essentially a grouping to take care of each other's security in the face of increased Chinese aggression. That's where everyone is focused on, given the kind of build-up we have seen. So for example, India had a very clear stated position underscored or outlined by Prime Minister himself in 2018 Shangri-La Dialogue, where he said that Quad has nothing to do with security. It is essentially a grouping of democracies aimed at peace and development. Today, in the op-ed piece that he has written for a Japanese online platform, he has made it very clear that, for the first time perhaps mentioned, that security is also integral to Quad. So I think slowly the Quad nations are becoming open to the idea that at some stage, if not immediately, a defense cooperation element also has to come in. Apart from that, of course, the Quad keeps discussing safety and security of evolving technology tools like 5G. There also we have seen the Chinese trying to manipulate things given their prowess. But now pictures coming in. Prime Minister there, coming out, going for the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework meeting at Izumo Gardens, where he would be participating along with President Joe Biden of the United States. And Prime Minister there taking his seat in the carcade, which is leaving for IPEF, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, of which, of course, India is part, because it's a Quad initiative conceived by President Joe Biden, agreed to by all participating nations, essentially giving a platform to other nations in the region to join in with the Quad agenda of making sure that the region remains free from monopoly of one particular country, one particular nation. That's what we are seeing, and Prime Minister there leaving for IPEF framework inaugural, after which he will come back and have the business summit here back at the hotel where he's put up with this delegation. Samiksha.
Well, Abhishek, also I wanted you to touch upon the Russia-Ukraine war as well. Do you think that would also feature in the talks that will happen tomorrow in the Quad Summit?
I missed that question, Samiksha, if you can come again.
Sir, Abhishek, if you could give us more details, if we talk about the Quad Summit tomorrow, do you think Russia-Ukraine war could also be one of the topic of discussions among the Quad leaders?
Samiksha, again, there was distraction from the PCR. Can you come with the question again?
Abhishek, if you could briefly touch upon, well, I'm told we have to slip into a very short break. Abhishek, we'll come back to you. Well, I'm sorry, there seems to be a confusion there. Abhishek, please take us through some of the issues that will be taken up tomorrow in the Quad Summit.
Well, yes. So, Samiksha, I got your question now. For the benefit of our Hindi viewers as well. कल जो क्वाड की समिट होगी, अभी प्रधानमंत्री, वैसे मैं दर्शकों को बता दूं कि गए हैं IPEF का हिस्सा बनने, जो एक नया इकोनॉमिक कोऑपरेशन के लिए अमेरिका के द्वारा प्लान किया गया प्लेटफॉर्म है, जिसमें कोशिश की जाएगी कि इकोनॉमी और ट्रेड पे कोई देश, कोई सत्ता अपनी ताकत का इस्तेमाल करके ट्रेड पर सब कब्जा ना कर ले। ये इशारा चीन की तरफ है। तो मैं समझता हूं जैसे चीन का एक प्लेटफॉर्म है BRI, ऐसे ही IPEF बन रहा है, जिसमें भारत, ऑस्ट्रेलिया, जापान, अमेरिका मिलके और देशों को जोड़ेंगे और एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म बनाएंगे जो सबको एक साथ लेकर चले, उनको डेट ट्रैप में न फंसाए, जिस तरह से हमने देखा चीन ने किस तरह से श्रीलंका के साथ किया हुआ है। उसके अलावा कल क्वाड का एजेंडा जो है वो ये है कि एक तो आपने पिछले साल और पिछली मीटिंग जो सितंबर में हुई थी उसके बाद से अब तक क्या क्या किया है, जैसे कोविड के बारे में बहुत कुछ क्वाड देशों ने मिलकर किया है, भारत की वैक्सीन बनाने में जो मदद की थी उसके बारे में। उसके अलावा हमने देखा किस तरह से क्वाड ने जो साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी है, 5G जैसे इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजी है, उस पर किसी एक देश का कब्जा ना हो जाए, उसके लिए ग्रुप्स बनाए थे, तो उनके जो रिपोर्ट्स हैं उनको साझा किया जाएगा। और मैं समझता हूं ये बात कही नहीं जाती है, पर ये बात सच है कि क्वाड जो है ये 4 देशों का आना इसलिए है कि चीन जो है दादागिरी जो इस क्षेत्र में कर रहा है, जापान के साथ, फिलीपाइंस के साथ, इंडोनेशिया के साथ, वियतनाम के साथ, ताइवान के साथ, भारत के साथ, उसको नकेल करने के लिए, उसको कंट्रोल करने के लिए, उसको रोकने के लिए एक दूसरे के साथ सुरक्षा के जो मुद्दे हैं उन पर आपस में चर्चा विचारणा की जाए और एक प्लेटफॉर्म बनाया जाए। तो वो सब चर्चा जो है कल क्वाड में होगी। और अभी प्रधानमंत्री IPEF के लिए गए हैं, वापस आएंगे और यहाँ पे एक बिजनेस समिट जापान के जो टॉप कॉरपोरेशन है उनके साथ होगी, जिसमें प्रधानमंत्री बताएंगे कि भारत में जो आमूलचूल बदलाव आ रहे हैं पॉलिसी के क्षेत्र में, नीति के क्षेत्र में, जिससे बिजनेस इंप्रूवमेंट हो है और माहौल बढ़िया हो रहा है, और उसमें किस तरह से जापान अपनी साझेदारी निभा सकता है। देखिए बुलेट ट्रेन बन रही है, द बुलेट ट्रेन दैट इज कमिंग अप इन इंडिया, वो जापान के सहयोग से आ रही है। जो अभी बहुत सारे स्टार्टअप्स हमारे यूनिकॉर्न बने हैं, यानी कि जिनका जो मार्केट वैल्यू है वो करीब $1 बिलियन यानी 7-8 हज़ार करोड़ रुपए का है, वो आधे से ज़्यादा ऐसे हैं जिनकी इनिशियल फंडिंग जापान की कुछ कंपनीज ने करी थी। वो अपने आप में दिखाता है कि किस तरह से जापान और भारत एक दूसरे से सरकारों के अलावा प्राइवेट सेक्टर में भी सहयोग कर रहे हैं। उसकी और ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटी क्या है, उस सब के बारे में प्रधानमंत्री एक ब्रॉड कम्युनिकेशन आउटरीच करके उनके साथ यहाँ पे अभी साझा करेंगे, चर्चा करेंगे। 1 घंटे से ज़्यादा का यहाँ कार्यक्रम फिर से होने वाला है। प्रधानमंत्री जब वापस आएंगे IPEF से, और उसके बाद शाम को 7:30 बजे हम देखेंगे किस तरह से जो एक इंपीरियल होटल है वहाँ पे भारतीय समुदाय जो टोक्यो में रहता है उनके साथ संबोधित होंगे। और जिस तरह से हम देखा कि जब प्रधानमंत्री जाते हैं कहीं भी विदेश यात्रा पर, तो भारतीय समुदाय से मिलकर उनको बताते हैं देश में क्या हो रहा है और कैसे वो एक भारतीय अपने देश का राजनयिक राजदूत हो सकता है अपने कंडक्ट के द्वारा। इस तरह का संवाद शाम को 7:30 बजे एट अराउंड 7:30 PM इन द इवनिंग इट इज गोइंग टू हैपन एट द इंपीरियल होटल इन टोक्यो।
Well, Abhishek, stay with us. Tell us more about the visuals, the scenes that we saw earlier in the morning as well when Prime Minister reached Tokyo, because the rich visuals that came in only go on to point the kind of outreach, the kind of connect that Prime Minister has with the Indian diaspora in Tokyo as well.
Well, those pictures, Samiksha, are from the time when the Prime Minister arrived at the hotel from airport after landing in Tokyo. And he was given a warm welcome by the Indian community present and who came so early in the morning just to have a look at the Prime Minister, welcome him, engage with him. And the Prime Minister also, despite that long 8-hour flight, spent about 20 minutes with the Indian community, engaged with the children, spoke to the women present, listened to a prayer that the community brought in and presented before the Prime Minister. He was all ears, very attentive all through that interaction. So that was earlier in the day. After that, he immediately went in for briefings by officials. Remember, he is leading a high-powered delegation. Apart from that, there has been the mission here which has prepared the itinerary and all the engagements for the Prime Minister. So he was briefed about those for an hour and a half or so, and then subsequently the corporates came in and the meetings started one-on-one with Suzuki, with Uniqlo, with NEC, and with SoftBank, about which we have been reporting. So that's how his day has really panned out. It's continuing. He has just left the hotel for the IPEF, which is again a big ticket event. You will get the pictures in about 10 minutes time from now between Prime Minister and President Joe Biden there, in the presence of Prime Minister Kishida and Prime Minister Albanese of Australia, announcing the IPEF, which is seen as an alternative to the BRI, for the free world, for the democracies to come together, minus coercive element that the Chinese are known to practice by way of their soft loans, which has now become a trademark. We have seen it in the case of Pakistan, although the Pakistanis won't admit it. We have seen in the case of Sri Lanka. We have seen in the case of Myanmar. We have seen in the case of many African countries of how the Chinese start with soft loans and then slowly capture the infrastructure and capture the resources as well. So IPEF is essentially being seen as TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership minus China, or an alternative to BRI. That's what you are going to see in the pictures being announced just in a while from now.
Well, yes, Abhishek, also for our audience, if you could give us some information as to what role does IPEF really play in securing the Indo-Pacific region, that is also going to be one of the top agendas of this Quad Summit.
Yes, Samiksha, so IPEF is essentially the economic arm of the Quad. Quad per se, though it began as a security dialogue between these nations, somehow midway lost steam and fizzled out, partly because the Australians did a balancing act between China and Quad, partly because our earlier government of the Congress Party of the UPA, led by Dr. Manmohan Singh, was not very keen to get into a situation where we might offend China, despite the fact that China does not care. We have seen it happening in the case of Doklam. We have seen it happening in the case of Ladakh over the last 2 years. So I think ultimately it so happens that Quad willy-nilly would become a security grouping as well, a movement in the direction of which is already happening by way of joint exercises, in which Australia is back, for example, part of the Malabar exercises that take place between India and the Quad nations. So that security aspect is something on which everybody is focused on as the leaders meet for the Quad Summit tomorrow. But for now, we will take a short break and we continue and come back to the coverage from Tokyo, where Prime Minister is headed to IPEF and would be back for a business summit. Be right back.